G'day, my name is Mark, and I believe I am the dumpster whisperer. Fair income. Now, we have a lot to get through in this one, so please stick with me. I'm making a desk for a client, and they have no budget. No budget. They've seen my work, and they basically said, just make something cool. Alrighty. In fact, the only specification that they gave me is they want it longer and thicker. Do you mean wider? Lol. Now that does not mean I get to jack up the price. What it does mean is I get to try some different techniques, try some things I've always wanted to do, and I get to show you. For this project, I've busted out my best pallets. I've dove through the dumpster to get the particle board, and I've also been donated a heap of hardwood decking, and it is absolutely beautiful. Right. Now I've got to chamferize all of that. Okay, quick update because I need to do a test run. Under here is the MDF board. I've chamferized all of these pieces after I've thinned them out. I need to glue these on, clean it up, do my test, and then before I go and do the other 6 pieces. If the test doesn't work, you won't see the chamferization again. You'll see something like this. So let's hope this works. In this video, what I want to do is try and show you a few ideas for building big projects in a small space and how I go about that. All else fails, go with blue. Probably should have checked this first. What I also like to do is plan my projects around the machines that I have. For this one, I want a nice flat surface on this desk, so everything has to go through the thicknesser. Experiment complete. I'm going to show the client this. If they like it, I'm going to do some more of this. 5 more of thises. I need more desk. All of these offcuts from that hardwood decking are going to be perfect to give myself some end caps on the desk, as well as frame off the rest of these panels in a pretty cool way.
Okay, so it's okay when you don't use pallet wood.
Of course it is, mate. If you'd like to know what this conversation is all about, you're gonna have to go and have a gander at Jester's video.
What is a gander? Ah, he says, have a look.
David Kelly, I salute you. Seriously, if you want some of these pallets, you just got to find yourself a David Kelly. These are the stretches off those massive pallets. I'm going to go through the normal routine, check for any nails, send them through the jointer, square them up, table saw, the thicknesser, call it a thicknesser because that winds up the yanks. And these will then frame these. These Z legs are the pallet wood part of the project. If you want to see how I prepared all of that pallet timber, it's in my how to get started video. There's also a separate video on these Z legs all together on maximizing your good pallets. I forgot to do the chamferization the old-fashioned way, so I'm going to have to do it the new fandangled way with one of these. May or may not be 45 degrees. Who's going to know? Who's going to know? Right, timber's all cleaned up. I've cut these massive rebates so that they slot around this entire lamination. It's going to be a lot of cutting, angulization, cutting, measuring and testing to make my way around these Zs. There's 90-degree turns, so we've got 45 bevels, there's the sharp angles in there and the obtuse maths up here. So montage should be playing by now, showing you how I'm doing that to end up with a pretty cool looking chunky Z, which is clearly a Z and not an N. So I'm going to keep going with that while the voiceover is running nicely in the background. Nothing a bit of sawdust and wood glue won't fix on that one. Oh, the gifts that keep on giving. Just got to do all that again. Zig, zag, zig, zig. I'll just turn it around. Still a zig. I am not making these again. Okay, I'm going to get started on the support beam that's going to go underneath all of these panels. Because there's no budget, I want to make something pretty cool. What it lets me do is use up all of these tiny pieces, glue them all together, and make a really effective, cool looking beam. I'll do this all on the table saw. I'll cut them to width and then rip them to the same thickness so that they all glue together nicely. Then after doing that routine, you're going to be left with all these nice, beautiful, thin strips of timber. Put them in the pile, and we'll use those in a future video. In-feed and out-feed in a small space is not always ideal. So here is an idea. Using a thicknesser on wheels, slowly and carefully you can reposition the thicknesser itself as the workpiece makes its way through, nice and safe, extending your in-feed, move the thicknesser, now you've got some out-feed. Happy days. With all my small pieces now made, there is only one day where I have to completely cover this workbench as the full-size piece comes together. Speaking of in-feed and out-feed, if you position your table saw in the dead center of your longest space, you're going to maximize your in-feed and your out-feed. You're going to be laughing like a big hairy spider. I've got the big beam to carry most of the weight. I've got some little brackets for the tabletop to sit on, as well as connect the Zs. These steel brackets, which I actually have to remake, so that you can actually assemble this in situ. Diver? Situ. Dickhead. Long time coming. To get to this point, pretty stoked. Pretty and stoked.
See, Mark, any free wood is good wood.
Let's go and meet this legendary client. And how much did I get paid? Fair dinkum. I need to find a client who actually has some money. So what we are going to do on the next video, we're going to go back to basics, basic power tools to get the job done. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Pause. Awkward silence. In the meantime, why don't you check out this older video, pallet wood cone-shaped stools. And you'll be laughing like a disco dancing dingo. Stand by for some awesome joinery. G'day. My name is Mark. Alrighty, I have a pallet that I made out of a coffee table and other ingredients. The plan for this one is very simple, but hopefully very effective. And what it's going to let me do is use up as much timber lying around the shed to help me declutter. I'm going to need some framework stock and some stock to go around the frame, which is my pallet wood made from that coffee table. Now, whenever I mill up new stock, I'm going to do this. So I can give an idea of how much timber I need. Pretty technical, right? I have some exactamundo measurements for this thing. So in order to avoid multiple balls ups, I need to do a little sketcheroo, lay out some pieces to make sure I'm on the right track. Science, maths. Dimensions sorted, I need to make a little simple frame. I'll knock it up with pocket holes and of course check square. Okay, before the glue dries, I've got to pull that apart. I allowed for all the dimensions, forgot about, I'd not yet cut these to size. They need to be about 5mm or so. Thinner, so I'll quickly pull that apart, rip them through the table saw, put it back together. Fill up more ingredients. I want some additional framing for two reasons. It'll support my slats and also provide a little internal structure that I need later on in the project. A little more maths to decide how many slats I want on this frame. Then redo the maths after I realise my slats are not wide enough. Hello. Fake pallet wood slats. Ready. As you may know, I love a good chamferisation. This time I'm going to use the table saw as it is very effective compared to using the router table. Chamferisation complete. I am stoked. I'm cruising along with this project. Now I can cut a heap of miters and start to wrap the wood around the frame, making it super duper strong. To make the miters easy, I cut the miter to an approx size and then I trim off the arse end later, saving me heaps of grief, measuring twice and cutting multiple times until I get it perfect. Some of the miters you just have to take your time and sneak up on them, because if you make an error, you may have to mill up a whole new piece of pallet wood, like I did. Fair dinkum. From here, lots of glue and spatula action and clamping. Stick with me though, it gets very exciting. Right, so my pallet wood was nowhere near enough. I need about 3 times that stock. I've got these cedar louvers, other ingredients, and they'll do just fine. I'll get plenty of slats out of these. More gluing, more clamping, very exciting. These steel beams have come in so handy on so many projects. They are definitely not a bad thing to get into your shed. Fair dinkum. That could have been a tragedy that may have just broke me. Alrighty. So I still did not calculate the correct amount of pallet slats. So, more ingredients required, more milling required. Right, now I have enough. Thank you. Moving on. I need to whip up a little cross-cut sled to safely cut all these little miterized pieces. And you guessed it, more glue, more clamps. Behold! Let me give you a few close-ups. What I love about this technique, your tools might be a little bit shit at cutting miters. You might be a little bit shit at cutting miters, but fear not, stick around. It is all going to make sense at the end. And I call this technique the wrap around nifty cladding aesthetic, or wanker technique for short. Okay, pallet challenge, you can use other ingredients, so I've got to go to the other ingredients shelf. Other ingredients. Again, I want to use up as much shit as possible in the shed. So I'll turn this very large piece of pine into a small pieces of pine. That I can then turn back into a large, flat, strong piece of pine. Clear as mud. I also love this technique for using up all your pallet wood offcuts, and you can create yourself a beautiful feature beam like this and these. Other ingredients. We have had this bed head for a fair time, and it is not going to get a gig in our house yet. And, well, it won't be used as a bed head, but we thought it would look very nice in this project and give it a very cool second useful life. So, you may have figured out I'm making another desk. And this bed head is going to be the, how do you say it, the desk top part. My flash new beam will support the desktop and also prevent racking once I bolt this thing together. How good are threaded inserts? Behold, here is the beautiful part. You can use all sorts of coloured timbers, and your miters can be pretty flippin' ordinary because the paint is going to hide all of that with an extra coat or two. And if you've really shonkered one up, a little putty will save the day. Now, if you don't mind me blowing a little hot air up my own freckle, I reckon this looks pretty effective. It has cost me a tin of paint and a little bit of my time. It's also cost me this piece of glass, because otherwise it would have been quite difficult to write a letter on this desk top. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. G'day, my name is Dainsy and I'm preparing a whole heap of timber. I'm continuing on with the journey of discovery as I prepare my future self with a set of skills I call full business human. To recap, my current plan is to use everything I have right here, right now, to make things and sell things. Genius. My last two projects were quite time intensive, and I chose those to get a better idea of how long I spend on a particular project. One was a commission, beauty, I knew I was getting paid. The second was a project I plucked from my brain with the hope of selling it to raise the funds for Operation Table Saw Upgrade. I am still hopeful. For these projects, I'm going to revert back to what I know should work. Projects that normally sell pretty easy, lower price point and far less work, which is a hallway table. How it all started. Made from pallet wood and reclaimed timber. And I'm also going to use a technique that lets you stretch your nice pallet wood further and also create some sought after rustic charm. if you are wondering how this big half of a log is going to fit into the story, well, let me tell you. This video has a little treat. 2 projects on the go at the same time, both made quickly to sell, we hope. Did he just say we? I hear you say, through the internet. So I have my son Harley with me on this video. I am teaching him woodwork as one of his homeschool subjects. We are deviating from the curriculum because we want to make something cool, which includes this big log. The other bonus is we are double dipping the system. Another of Harley's subjects requires a mini business plan to be produced. So while I'm going full business human, he is going full mini business human. Now, just like back at high school, the timber was always prepared, squared up and ready to go because time is of the essence, which is the same here in the shed. The idea is also to focus on getting comfortable with the machinery, attempt the cool stuff and leave the boring hard yakka to Dad. I want him to come back. And plus, machining up the timber, well, that is my special time, if you know what I'm saying. Alrighty, while I am making the bricklaying hallway table, Harley will be cracking on with his bench, porch bench, a place to get your boots on and off, if you will. We are going with a fairly simple design, big log on top, square legs down below. It'll have bridle joints on all the legs. However, we are not busting out the tenon saw or the chisel on these. We are going to create our bridle joints by laminating our reclaimed decking together. With the timber all planed to the same thickness, you merely have to cut 2 different lengths and use your opposing sides as spaces. As long as you glue it up carefully, it should all go to plan. Right, back to the hallway table. And what I like to call bricklaying the pallet wood. There is many ways to get this done. Your tools and machinery will soon dictate that to you in your shed. The secret though is making sure all your bricks are dimensioned to the exact same size and they are nice and square. I used to make these bricks way back. When I did not have a thickness planer or a jointer, I would flatten all my slabs by hand with a router. Then I would slice up the bricks on the table saw, remembering that there is nothing a belt sander can't fix. Hopefully you're enjoying this cheesy 80s music montage. And you are getting pumped up like you would watching the Karate Kid wanting to have a go for yourself. So you can either create yourself these big box joints and glue the corners or the waterfall up as step 1, or create your top and your sides separately, clean them up, bash them together with a nail. Okay, quick update. This is basically what the corner pieces would look like as you laminate the big box or the finger joints together. What I would do is get a nice, perfect square corner to start with, and I would set myself up to start some sort of stagger. None of these pieces are ever the same, it does not matter. I will then stick it on a flat surface, make sure this is right angles to the bench, work my way along for the short side, clean that up with the belt sander, etc. I'll then flip it over and make my way along the entire bench, bricklaying as I go. And because I don't actually have enough pallet wood to do the side and the top, and I also want to try something new, I also need a little bit of contrast and some serious check squaring to make sure this works first attempt. I have this reclaimed hardwood of varying species, mostly Hardius Facarius. Again, the timber needs to be milled up to the exactamondo dimensions of the pallet wood bricks. I need to whip up a little cross-cut sled so I can cut the chamfers on the tops of the fingers. I did try the router, however, it was a bit of a shit fight. This way looks Mickey Mouse. So again, I use spacers to help set my box joint and a whole heap more check squaring and double check squaring. If this glue up is just millimeters out of whack, it is going to stand out like you know what on a small yellow bird. I'm doing my young fella a solid and cleaning up all his pieces with the machines. His first experiences with a hand plane should not be with my less than awesome sharp plane blades. Once I learn to sharpen properly, then we will move on to hand tools. Going to use my vise in anger. I'll admit it's not the fastest vise in the world. My chisels are acceptably sharp to have a bit of a go at clearing out the waste from the table saw assisted half lap joints. There was one bridle joint that did slip while gluing up. We could have made a whole new section, however the learning experience of how to cover up your dodgies was far too vague. That is what I tell myself. Anyway. What do you got to say?
Check square.
Right, song change, and we are back to the brick lane. Lay down some baking paper underneath and then simply work your way along. Test out what looks nice before you commit to the tight bond. The main reason I don't cut my bricks the same size, a la real bricks, is to limit the waste of the pallet slabs. I merely cut off the bricks wherever that length of pallet stops looking good, as in where all the ends of the pallets meet. The width of my top and sides would actually be fine to go through the planer. However, that would then make a meal of my nice chamfered fingers. So a quick clean up with the belt sander was all that was required, again, because the bricks were all dimensioned nice and perfect. Harley is on the job trenching out the log. The legs will sit nicely in these recesses after some delicate chisel work with the 50mm Narex weapon. All the pieces are coming together now, and this bench is going to look pretty rad. What is even cooler, the big log was given to us by Harley's Poppy. So I'm pretty stoked with how it is working out. Pop will be proud as a proud thing. I would like to quickly tell you how I've been going full business human. You know, the business stuff that no one really wants to do, the bookwork, the back of house. That is why I'm now using Traderfy. It is an all-in-one job management software for tradies and shed-dwelling side hustlers like me. Traderfy is a fast and easy job management app. Quote, invoice, automated reminders, a cool little mapping feature for those on the go. Another feature is the time sheets to help keep track of all your work hours across all your jobs. My favorite thing in Traderfy is the job timer. Stop, start, pause the job, switch between other jobs with ease, and when you're done, simply create an invoice. Traderfy will total up all your hours times by your hourly rate, send it off, and you get paid. Why don't you give Traderfy a go? I have a link in the description that'll give you a groovy little discount. Massive thank you to Traderfy for sponsoring this video and helping me go full business human. The other end of the hallway table is going to have tapered legs, very contrasting in comparison to the chunky side. Tapered legs with a roundover looks pretty slick and is well worth all the extra steps until you realise you've made two identical legs, which does not work when they are laminated boards. The orientation was all wrong. I needed to make 2 opposite legs, so I had to do all the steps again. Fair dinkum. At least I have a spare now to experiment on with the open tenons I have got going. The bonus of laminating 3 boards together is when it is time to chisel out the waste to accept the same size board, you can simply chisel down to the colour change, mortises for dummies, I suppose. Starting to bring the frame together now, the dowels were not meant to be visible. They were originally meant to be on the inside, however I got one step ahead of myself. They do need to be there as these joints need some extra support as there is no lateral support because I am making a secret drawer. I figure somewhere to hide your car keys will be a popular feature in my part of the world right now. The drawer carcass will also provide a little structure, so I'm making sure it is nice and snug so I can glue it into position because it is a secret. Alright, just gotta check square. Oh shit. Legs are all squared up, the clamps were in fact pulling them all wonky donkey because of the secret drawer or lack of a lateral apron, which I think that's what it's called. I have these sampler tins of Whittle Wax Hard Wax Oil. In short, I love them already. I was well and truly overdue to try some new finishes that are not polyurethane. With the whole table finished, I decided to list the piece on Facebook Marketplace because I have had a lot of luck with this furniture category on that platform. It can be a little bit of a minefield of time wasters and a lot of people who don't value your time or work, they just want a bargain. Lucky for me, I found a nice buyer who does appreciate my stuff. I listed it for 500 kangaroo. The buyer stopped by for a look and offered $450. So now Harley's bench is done and I think it looks pretty special. We have had a lot of fun working through this project, learning new things, getting used to machines, and of course spending quality time together. That has been pretty unreal. Again, we listed his bench on Facebook Marketplace for $350. No real interest initially, so I threw it up on my website and sold. Happy days. I tell Harley making stuff is cool, selling your stuff and making a few coins is even cooler. Here's where the story gets a little bit different. I check out the shipping details and I immediately freak out when I see the address is overseas somewhere. I did not tick local pickup only. I have no idea where this person lives and I cannot even pronounce their name. It seems a bit odd. I then see a little note attached to the order. And to paraphrase, this person has been following along on Instagram and loves seeing a dad and his son making things. It reminded him of his dad and now himself with his own daughter. He also loved that the big log was from Harley's Poppy. So he bought the bench. Why? Simply because he wanted to see Harley give that bench back to his Poppy and keep it in the family. I was absolutely blown away, to say the least. Now, this person did a pretty good job at remaining anonymous with their very fake name and dodgy address. However, they did make a little mistake by paying with PayPal. So I got a separate receipt that had their full, real name. This was such a beautiful gesture, and I know that random internet person wants to remain anonymous. So I'm not going to name them. However, if you'd like to check out this video next, catch you later. G'day! This video is sponsored by Surfshark.
I just want to join pieces of wood to other pieces of wood, do art and buy groceries. I want to be able to afford sourdough by the loaf, egg by the dozen, bacon by the things. I want to get a little bit of almond milk, a little bit of avocado, maybe a jar of olives if things are going well. Most importantly, I just want to make cool stuff, be excellent to each other, and then fade off into obscurity.
I have a bit of a deadline for this video. Not because of the sponsor, I can meet that timeline. My real deadline is for another reason, and my shed days, as I call them, are drying up very quickly and I'm feeling a little under the pump. I need this project done to prepare for what is coming next. To get this project finished in time, I have asked Sam from Gumtree Hill Woodwork to help me out. Not only is he a guru at joining pieces of wood to other pieces of wood, he's pretty handy with SketchUp. I gave him one of my quick sketches and said, do magical things. It'll be a cool way to make me try new things, get better at woodwork, solve other things, and hopefully share some cool ideas. And of course to try and sell this and try and make some cassiola or sourdough and avocados. These are the stretchers left over from the 19 pallets that I harvested last year to establish, are these worth it? It was. Now I want to know if these stringers are worth the extra effort. They are full of nails, staples, cracks and voids. They are warped, bowed, skewed and generally wonky as a donkey. I had Harley give me a hand pulling out the nails, and I told him how Grandpa used to say to me, every one that you do is one that I don't have to do. So Harley, work faster. And we lolled. It only took about 1.5 hours to de-nail, metal detect and dig out any strays. This included lopping off any ends to save the nail dig out and chop any really warped boards in half to help with the straightening process. From the large pile there were several not worth it stretchers. These blue pallets that were in the bin are riddled with nails on both sides. I could not even pull the nails out of these ones, which is a first for me. These pine stretchers I've put aside because they are nice and straight and pretty handy for all sorts of framing things and house your fathers around the shed. I managed to straighten all this stock on the jointer. Normally if something is a little wonky donkey, I have to use a straightening jig on the table saw and that is much faster. You can see that done heaps of times in my other videos. Some sort of red gum, hardwood, hardiest precarious, hard to say. But what I love about them is all this gnarly, void, holes, insect, whatever has created those. I'm gonna hopefully pull several mallet handles out of these ones. Up until now, the labor that I've already put into this, just 2 mallet handles, is easy gonna make all this labor worth the effort. The straightening and squaring process took me again about roughly an hour and a half. So in total that is about 3 hours of labour to get to this pile of timber. I don't really get into the argument when it comes to comparing labour of reclaimed timber weighed up against going to buy the timber almost ready to go. I'm pretty confident I could not get this pile of wood even close to the cost of my 3 hours labour. And I like recycling. That's what I do. It makes me feel good on the inside. So, little spoiler alert, I am already going to claim this is worth it. But keep watching, I want to slice these up further and continue to join pieces of wood to other pieces of wood. I like to think the more that I slice up pallet wood, the better it gets. However, the stock pile will start to shrink every time the timber goes through a machine. So at a guess, I think I'll have about enough pallet wood to create the waterfall top and side and have some sort of lamination pattern. I am thinking that I will go and buy, that's right, pay monies for timber for the base cabinet. That is also going to save me a heap of time and I simply don't have enough reclaimed stock on hand. I also want a nice light uniform colour downstairs because there's going to be plenty going on up above. Now we put a lot of time and effort into growing our little businesses or side hustles, and a lot of that business is online or is e-commerce. So we have to protect ourselves. And the best way to help you do that is with a VPN, a Surfshark VPN. Surfshark will not only mask your IP address, but it will encrypt all of your data to and from its destination, keeping it safe from the bad actors or dodgy groups or individuals. There is no point doing all the hard work only to hand it over because you didn't take some simple steps like getting yourself a VPN. Here is the fun part about Surfshark. Let's say you are a traveling business human and you really want to catch up on your favorite TV shows and movies, but you can't watch them because of regional restrictions. Simply set your VPN to the region you need and away you go. And here is another very cool feature. It is called Surfshark Alert. Get alerted immediately. If your account has been involved in a data leak, you will quickly be able to change your passwords and secure those accounts. Click the link in the description to Surfshark below to start your protection today. And You'll also get yourself 3 months free when you use the code DAINERMADE. Thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. I'm sorting all the slats, removing the shorties, trimming up the long ones, so I have roughly the same length throughout. I'm turning over all the knots and also flipping anything with nail holes over as well. I'm trying to create one good side and one shonky side. So people can tell me this is not pallet wood, and I can reply with, "You have caught me again, shopping at the fake pallet store." Fair dinkum. Alrighty, the plan for the waterfall is to create a chevron or a zigzag pattern that has a little three-dimensional look, which means lots of tight bond, gluing pieces of wood to other pieces of wood. However, glued offset on a 45 degrees so that I save a lot of waste. I have 6 45-degree slabs of pallet wood glory that I'll use for the pattern. Hopefully I'll have enough to go all across the top and down one side as per the SketchUp-aroo plans. With one square edge and the slab faces parallel, I can now make the cuts that are the precursor to revealing the pattern. Take your time and extra care when doing these cuts. Make sure your hands don't follow those 45s into the metal spinny thing. So more slicing up on the table saw and then more gluing. Now I spent all that time creating the good side and the shonker side. I did not consider that half of the stock would actually then get flipped back upside down when the pattern is created. No big deal. At least I have reduced the ugly ducklings by about 50%. I am gluing up the full slab in small sections. Less confusion to keep all the correct pieces of the puzzles with their other pieces of puzzles. It actually caused me more grief later on, as each section was never going to clamp up identical. Bringing 2 zigzags together was a bit of a bastard, to be perfectly honest. Now when you're asking yourself, is it worth the effort or not, whether you are reclaiming the timber or buying it off the shelf, you have to admit, when this pattern starts to reveal itself, you can probably say, yes, it's worth it. These 45-degree miters have always been my nemesis and somewhat of a check square nightmare for me. So I'm doing all the things to make sure these cuts are nice and square and straight, and I've also done a few test cuts for the 45. Wish me luck. I made a little blunder cutting through the slab. I lost the distance of the kerf and therefore the pattern does not line up perfectly over the waterfall. Ideally you want to cut the perfect triangle out of your slab and fold that edge over. Next time, surely. Also, if you can make your slab in total, then do your cuts, grief will be far less. Again, joining the zigzags was less than awesome. I'm quickly running out of shed days. I head out to buy more timber. My local is having a show long weekend. They are closed. I check out the other local, and what a fucking rip-off they are. I also casually checked Bunnings and equally casually left Bunnings and went home empty-handed. So I am freaking out a little bit now. I had a full woodwork day to get most of the cabinet parts measured up and machined up. Then my inner tight-ass mode was engaged. Why don't I use what I have right here, right now, create the appearance of solid timber without the big hairy price tag, and I don't have to think about wood movement. Happy days. Now there has been a little make it up as you go. which I was trying to avoid because Sam is the poor bloke down there on the SketchUp task. I did go a little bit rogue and decided to go for a 3 drawers on the fly because it looked much nicer. And Sam the wizard retrospectively flashed up the 3D magic model. I am going like a crazy man. Not many shed days left before I want this completed. Half lapping my nice Vic Ash veneered ply is coming along very nicely. There's been a lot of figuring this out as I go. Joining the other end together with the waterfall caused me a lot of grief. To make all these line up when they're glued up slightly different was a little bit of a task. So lesson learned, I'm going to clean these ones up individually and get them into position and glue it all together. Saying that, down the end of the waterfall, I didn't want to cut a massive slab on the table saw. Cutting those miters with a small strip made things easier. And now it is time to sort the nemesis of a waterfall glue up. I like this technique for including a spline in the miter. I place my mitered pieces back to back, which then creates the 90-degree edge you want to utilize your router with a little fence. It is a beautiful thing. Check square and alignment, glue, spline, clamp it all together, get all the pattern aligned as perfect as possible. As far as I can tell, the corner clamping is all going swimmingly. With my nemesis, the waterfall edge. Until, oh dear, check square. Waterfall edge, you win again. Moving on. A bit of finish will certainly lift my spirits. I'm trying out another hard wax oil. This one I picked up from Studio Doubled. It's Livix Kunos Countertop Oil, which has a nice matte finish. Well, was it worth it? My fur coat it was. I love this slab of pallet wood pattern glory. What do you reckon? And I'm out of time. Stop the clock. That is all I can get done. Okay, so I'm on the bench for a few weeks. Let's call it light duties. I have to stay away from the dust for a little bit. I'll explain later. Also, it's confession time. The plan for this coffee table was to simply make something and sell something. However, I may not be able to do that. There is a few things that are not quite right, and these things do happen when you try something new technique, whatever. There is a couple of check square issues that got me good on this one. And I also made a blunder on the height of the waterfall. I forgot about the thickness of the slab. That can be fixed if I reduce the height of the overall cabinet in total. However, I have a few weeks to ponder my options. I still want to try the bendy legs. I also have a thing on the way to help me make the drawers. And as you know, I love drawers. Look, if all else fails, I am going to have the most beautiful table saw outfeed table on the internet. And to be fair, that is far more valuable to me than the cassiola that this was probably going to make, given that my side hustle to my side hustle is making video for you, tube. Now, if you want to see a project that I did complete, why don't you check out this dining table made of 40 skateboards and a gigantic pallet. Or click the link in the description for Surfshark 3 months for free with the code Dainer, mate. Catch you later. G'day! Slightly overdramatic intro to a woodworking video. Let me bring you up to speed. If you are new here, late last year I busted down and harvested 20 pallets into these glorious slabs to establish, is it worth it? I think it was. However, it is the projects from here on in where I hope to prove to myself and to show you how far you can stretch your best pallet stuff that you have so patiently and painstakingly collected. I'll resaw the slabs down to 5mm veneers and try to figure out how many slabs I'll need to use. I will lay them out as I go. End result is I think 3 slabs should do the job just nicely. I'm using the leftover plywood from my last project, which when I glue them together gives me a continuous length of 2.8 meters or about 9.5 feet for those who refuse to use a tape measure. I have chosen a pattern that won't waste too much stock but also look a little groovy with the plan I'm forming in my brain. I also have this sheet of form ply that I purchased for prototyping reasons on my last project, which in the end I overthought and I didn't actually need it. I conducted some extensive market research to figure out what type of furniture piece would have a good chance of selling. My market research consisted of sitting in front of the TV and looking at all the streaming services and the amount of TV content. It is literally out of control, which said to me, people are staying in more than ever and binging the new TV shows. So with all those big flat screen TVs out there, surely someone will want a nice, new, unique TV cabinet. Made from pallet wood, market research complete. After completing the 20-hour dining table project, I needed a project that was a little less hour intensive. This time I don't have a commission, I have to simply make something and try and sell it. I also want a project to get creative, that'll let me maintain the momentum with the time that I have at the moment. What I'm after is something rewarding for me without a high amount of work hours. How I'm going to do that is use what I have right here, right now. Which, if you recall from this video, is what I'll be doing for most of the projects over the next few months as I work towards my goal of the new table saw. So while I'm on the journey of business human discovery, I wanted a piece of furniture that can fetch a nice profit without falling into the large dollar category that is generally associated with the big ticket items like dining tables. I think this project will have a very nice risk to reward ratio. At the moment, the cabinet has these 2 large storage areas, probably a bit too big for anything other than unnecessary throw pillows or piles of board games. Let me keep going with the lamination while I think about those spaces. So I decided the spaces are simply too large and they really need to have some useful spaces for things that get plugged into our TVs. I'm going to have to make a couple of drawers. I hate drawers. The base cabinet will also need some doors, which I'm going to say I'll probably hate equally as much as the drawers. However, I think I'm going to have to put my big boy shorts on and just get started. See what I did there? It is time to bend this massive slab of pallet wood glory. I've whipped up this Dodgy Brothers 1000 square so I can start cutting. A heap of kerf cuts with my circular saw. I make a few passes, test as I go, make sure it's bending. It is, however, I am a little worried it is not bending easy enough. I make a few more cuts, still not bending, starting to get a little concerned. Cleaning out the sawdust has helped a little. I will just keep cutting. She'll be. Here is my hello dickhead moment. This section will not be bent. It is on top of the cabinet. I need to keep cutting in the other direction. My main fear was cutting through the other side if there were any different thicknesses in the pallet lamination. However, I think the thickness of my lamination is why it is not bending. So I lowered the blade and I recut all those passes. I'm about 80% confident now, so I'm going to start the other end while some of the patch-up glue dries on the first end. Here is my test pieces. Unsure why I'm not having a win. Starting to freak out a little bit. I think I better go and have a sleep. Post-sleep, I busted out the belt sander and thinned out the veneer around the kerf cuts. I think I'm going to be okay. I can now bring the two large parts together and I have my table saw workspace back at least to keep on going. Let me throw in a quick shout out and my inspiration for wanting to try this technique. Make with Miles. He created this beautiful record player cabinet with an extraordinary amount of complex woodwork techniques. What I love the most though was his willingness to give his time to this piece. I don't want to spoil his video, however, time, don't waste it, truly rang home for me in his video. The irony is not lost on me that this young fella made a record player cabinet and I am making a TV cabinet with spaces for DVD players and even the VHS. Now I understand I went overboard on the kerf cuts. No big deal, as I'll have to make the framework to support the kerf and give this cabinet its unique shape. Again, I'm sticking with this form ply. I have my trusty circle cutting jig, some basic geometry skills, and my straightening jig, now a tapering jig, to create these curvy mid-kerf face supports. Feeling pretty good at this stage. Time is blowing out a little. However, lots of glue and clamps. What could possibly go wrong? While the kerf glue party is drying, I'll carry on producing some more stock for the other bits and pieces. I need some of this decking for the skids for the cabinet, and the rest is for veneering the drawers and door fronts. Okay, gotta keep on going. What I initially thought would be a pretty quick and easy project is starting to prove it is quite the opposite as I discover more and more little steps and things I did not consider when I did my 5-minute sketch on a piece of paper. No matter, it is all going into the business human handle. I have these Tassie blackwood doors which I'll use for the trimming when I get to that, and I had to buy another sheet of ply for the drawer fronts. quick test run of my door making abilities before I go ahead and glue on the rustic charm. This reclaimed decking is the gift that keeps on giving. I am starting to cruise along now. Trimming goes on, more fluff to hide the things, more steps, more time. However, all is going quite well. Happy days. Let me show you what I have managed to do at the 19-hour mark into this project. During the clamp up of this side of the cabinet, I have managed to skew or pull this end off square. Didn't check square, just clamped it up. You can see the distance up here is quite large and down here is not. So when the drawer fronts go on, I have no lip. Down the other end, beautiful. This end, no good. And if I don't seem overly frustrated, it's because I've had a few days to cool down and figure out what I'm going to do. The options I had were try and camouflage doing things and then selling it at a massive hairy discount. I don't want to do that. I want to get better at this. I want to give this cabinet the best chance I can to get the best profit for the hours that I've put in. What I'm going to do is chop this whole side off. I want to keep it symmetrical, so I've got to come up with something that looks cool but works. So I've got a plan in my brain. I'm going to get started on that and hopefully pull it off. The other deciding factor here is see how things just didn't bend quite right. I tried to smooth this off and up here I actually broke through the veneer, which I thought I may be able to get away with that one for a big hairy discount. But then I had a heap more, so this side's days were numbered well before I spotted the major balls up. The plan is to keep this cabinet symmetrical. I want the curves on both ends, so I'm thinking I may be able to create a little side area, call it the artsy side, so I can get away with it and hope it looks okay. I'm going to use more decking leftovers to slice up some even thinner strips so I can attempt to bend this timber without steaming to replicate the same curved profile end that I had. I used the thicknesser hack to get these strips even thinner as they were not bending anywhere near the desired result. I salvaged the form ply framework and that became my mold for the exact shape that I needed. I glued the thin strips up in 2 stages which made it far more manageable. This is pushing the limits of a non-steam bend with this particular hardwood. My side arty thingy is going to be a large book area, which I hope will give it a few more creds when it comes time to sell it. I have more hardwood decking and I am making a very simple skeleton frame, which again in my brain at this stage should work just fine. Time is starting to really blow out. I've got lots of little jobs on the go to wrap this thing up. Doors on, drawers on and working. Neither caused me much grief in the end. The simple skeleton frame is coming together with some of the finest butt joints you'll ever see. Tight bond is a beautiful thing. Time for a bit of finish. I'm laying down some thinned down oil-based poly to get my first look at this pallet wood glory. I'm not completely sold on the top just yet, and I may do a little stain combo as I've done in the past to unify the top a little more. However, I am not rushing into that decision. I'm starting to feel pretty good about my disaster recovery artsy-fartsy book holster. The bendiness with a few dowels is looking pretty rad, if I do say so myself. I still have a few minor decisions like drawer pulls, a few tidy ups here and there, as well as putting on the backing board. The project so far has taken me about 27.5 hours. The business human plan was to charge an hourly rate plus materials. I used roughly 3 sheets of ply, believe it or not, plus hardware, bits and pieces. That cost came to about 300 bucks. If I'm going to charge 75 bucks an hour plus materials, I am looking at a recommended retail price of 2,300 Aussie dollars. Can I get that? Should I ask that? What do you think? I don't really know. Let me get the beauty shots and advertise it, and I'll get you an update hopefully in the next video. And don't forget, before you go to bed at night, make sure you click on one of these playlists. Catch you later. G'day. Okay, this build is all about this trapezoidal dining table frame. It's made out of some reclaimed hardwood, and I think it's spotted gum. Made some errors along the way, but they were all about learning. I'll get to that. Bear with me. Lots of nails, so fans going on because it's 4,000 degrees in the shed. Okay, let's get into it. So, cannot believe that all this timber was going to be thrown in the bin. I've got about 20 lengths of this big stuff, and it cleans up absolutely beautifully. So there's definitely a few types of timber in here, so I did have to sort them out to get all this nice browny stuff and sort of keep the red stuff to the side. Alrighty, so I'm cutting myself an angle on all the pieces here. Don't know what that angle is. I basically just laid out what I thought looks nice. I set myself up a little bit of a template, and then I went ahead and just copied all that same angle, took it over to the saw, cut them my pieces to size to start to get the bits and pieces I need for this trapezoid. Alrighty, the old stop block, absolutely important for this one. Getting all those exactly the same size was pretty important, just like that. Anyway, alright, moving on. So, the idea on this one was to show you a few ways of cutting out the waste. So the first one being, just use a table saw like this. Clean it up with a chisel. Pretty straightforward. Just bear with me. Okay, so second method was going to be the old table saw on the sled and then take it over to the bandsaw. So I'm just cutting the shoulder on these joints, using the clamp to hold it down, because just that little bit of angle, it got a little bit slippery. But massive spoiler alert, I actually end up chopping out all the waste with the table saw. So stand by for what happened with the bandsaw. Okay, so I've just used a table saw to remove all the waste. As you can see, that's pretty much what you're left with. Clean up with a chisel and some files just to get the best gluing surface as possible after using the table saw. Now, the plan was to actually use my bandsaw to cut out the waste in one hit. Now, I saw a really cool video from Robin Lewis, how he sets it up to cut these angles. You basically have a stop block, you push your piece in, cut it, and then you can just raise it to the line. So this first line is your stop point on the underside, then you merely would just raise it. As you can see here, this timber is pretty hard, and I think my blade is obviously about to go, as it was starting to cook up a storm. But it was a nice, smooth, ready to go. So I'll buy a new blade and maybe next time. Do you know why I like this file? It's because it's called a bastard. I don't even know where this file came from. It's probably for metal, but it does just smooth it off that little bit more to get that nice gluing surface. That's pretty good, pretty flat. You are going to get some lines. You're not going to get them all out. Having a flat grind, what are they called? A flat grind kerf? Cuffy, help me out, buddy. So, a big thing I got out of watching all Cuffy's videos on his Aussie Ocker workbench was the template. Now, this thing is paying for itself in time. So, I know that I've got this beautiful center line. I can take a marking for that one. Get the other piece that I know has to match up for this half lap. Take a marking for that. And I know that I've got dead center for both of them. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you, Mr. Cuffy. Alrighty, time to get out the don't balls this up pen. So, got me two trapezoids going down that way. I need to cut the top out of one, turn him over, and the bottom out of the other. And they're just a couple more dumbass marks for me. What's half of 75 millimeters? I get a calculator. 37.5. That was the answer. So I've marked that out. Now I've got this fancy marking knife. This is where I should be using that. But at least I'm using a normal pencil now. What I also did, I got a marking gauge, and I can check that I've actually got the middle, that drops into that little knife line. Then I can go and set my table saw up for the big cut. Okay, just about to do the glue up, and again, this template is coming in really handy. So I've got my first piece, which is going to be the full trapezoid. I've got all my lines, so I know that there's nothing to check. It's all good to go. The second piece, I'm leaving this top section off. Now, there's two reasons for that. One, I just want to try a different style of joinery for the first time up top. No one's going to see it, no big deal. The other reason is it's a chance for me to make sure that these two crosses actually line up, because once it's all glued together, there's going to be no give. So it's a little bit of a get out of jail card for me on this one, which I've done this before and it works a treat. But anyway, let's glue. Still works. Whoa, that was a dodgy slide, that one. But I got here just in time. There's no glue on that one. Just got to support it so I don't break it. Alrighty, sticker sponsor shout out is Toby from Toby Fire and Steel. He's a knife maker. He has a YouTube and a podcast. Go and check him out. He's a good bloke. Remember that toy as a kid where you used to bash the thing in with the mallet? I can't believe that I finally got to use that skill. Paying off. Paid off big time. Thanks, Mum and Dad. Okay, just a quick bonus tip. Now this dowel's meant to be 19mm. I've only got an 18mm speed bore. When you actually measure them, this is a little bit over 18 and that's a little bit under 19. So these went in pretty well. If they are a little bit fatter, you may want to give it a bit of a sand, just like that. Otherwise you may end up splitting your wood down here. Anyway, FIXIT finger, he's got that down pat. I'll chuck a little video up top if I can. Don't know if I can do it anymore, but anyway.
Look at all that lovely sawdust coming off. I'm all masked up. It's perfectly safe. What's possibly wrong with filming yourself?
Get down low. Okay, so again, I only made one full trapezoid. I'm now going to put these two side pieces on. So it was a little bit of, I didn't know if I could get them exactly right. Probably could have, but I want to try this joinery up top here. So I don't have a perfect flat surface. So I'm basically going to take this out onto the patio. I'm going to use all my clamps and get this joint glued up into position, and to make sure I get these distances perfectly lined up and that both legs are square to the ground. Alrighty, so just quickly, check square, check square, check square, check square, check square, and check square. On a trapezoid, it's all good. Okay, so feeling pretty good at this stage. I'm using the table saw to cut the shoulder. I've got a nice little stop block there. You might recognise that one. Get all those good to go. And then I'm going to bust out the Japanese handsaw because that's important. Going to do a bit of hand joinery. Alright, I haven't cut a dovetail since high school, so go easy on me. I don't know, there's probably 1,000 things I'm doing wrong here, but it's about learning. Okay, still got the Japanese handsaw. It's all going well. A couple of dodgy cuts, but you know, I'm a little bit out of practice. Got the chisel going. It's a very blunt chisel, so really reality's starting to set in here, but I'm going to continue. Right, so time to fall on my sword. I'm giving up on my two-piece action. So what I've managed to do is, because this half lap down the bottom wasn't super tight, it actually just broke the glue joint a little bit. So when I set up this side for the little dovetail action, it was all good. But this piece wasn't perpendicular to the ground. So I threw out the other side completely, and I don't want to destroy the whole thing. So anyway, I have learned a lot, I tell you. So I'll just make a cross piece, do my best to line up the top half lap with these other two joints, and hopefully recover it. So I've now got to cut this half flat out with a handsaw. again, if I just had trusted myself a little bit more and done it this way the first time, I wouldn't have learnt anything. So, it's all good. Let's do this. Right, this is shit. Seriously, that was way easier. Anyway, gotta try things. Alright, there is a link for this saw down below. Now, this link is James's from FIXIT Fingers link, so he gets a little kickback if you buy the saw. So that's pretty cool. Now, last step, I'm just going to throw a little bevel on the vertical edges of this just to soften it up. It will tie in with the top. That's going to get a bit of a bevel around the big edge. So this is the routine I'm going with. This little router, it's a little beauty. Quick sand up to 240 and it is time to finish. Now, it still blows me away that you can get some pretty dodgy old timber and it scrubs up to look like this. So, pretty happy. Check that out. Dig it. Alrighty, that's it. This is the frame all done. Next video is going to be all about the dining table top. So really appreciate everyone that has actually subscribed to the channel. That is really helping it grow. But what that's doing is it's helping it push it to help find new people. And again, that is really helping the support of this channel. So much appreciated, and you'll be notified when that big dining table top is ready to go. All right, thank you very much. Alrighty, let's pick this one up from here. The slabs have all been made, so let's build the table. Ended up with 6 slabs, so I'm going to use my jointer to joint all these edges. Ideally, you joint one side, run it through the table saw to get it parallel. As you can see, I'm limited on space, so I've just labelled all my edges that are butting up against each other, and I'm just taking them over one at a time, jointing them up, and I'm just going to work my way along. I've got these thick pieces on here, so when the edge comes around, I don't want to end up with this ugly little slither. So you want a good couple of centimetres there, so that edge is nice and chunky. Then I just trim up another chunky piece, stick it on that end, which has fallen short a little bit, and then that'll give that same nice curve on the other side as well. Now, I'm loving this little trim router. It's a very versatile tool. Saves buying a biscuit cutter. I've borrowed one in the past, which is great. But this thing does the job. Got a 4mm slot cutter. And then just your stock standard biscuits. Now, also in the past, I've come up with this big routine to make these biscuits fit exactly perfect in their slots. Not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to cut a big slot, stick in as many as I want. Then I don't have to do any of that brain power. And the more the merrier, I suppose. It's a beautiful thing. So it occasionally dawns on me that I bite off a little bit more than I can chew. And now that I've moved this shop around, I'm a little bit limited on space and manoeuvrability. So I've just got to go through this routine every time I want to do a large glue up like this table. Using the router to cut these grooves, don't forget to clean off your little bloody squeeze out, because your router's going to hit it. Make life hard. I'm going to slot these pieces of red gum in. Could be ironbark. It's nice and hard. Anyway, it's not actually this piece of timber that I'm relying on as the strength. It's these tiny little bonds to decrease the bending moment of all these individual slats. So they're all going to be bonded in individually against this piece, and this is how it's explained to me. Not the greatest explanation. I'm hoping that this bond here, like plywood, will be nice and strong. Makes sense. It makes sense to me. Been a bit overzealous with the glue here, but I don't want to miss any points of bond. There's a couple of little dodgy bits where the router just shifted a bit. Because it is jumping through all these different densities, you really do have to take your time. You probably could help yourself by putting another rail just to almost lock it in. Now I'm only putting these screws in purely to pull this piece of timber down, and then I'm going to take these out later on so I can then clean it off. So these aren't actually needed. It's basically the clamping mechanism. Okay, as you can see, although I did bash it down with a hammer, just using the screws has pulled it down that little bit more, a bit more glue squeeze out. So hopefully a better bond. I'm all set up to cut the circle. I've just made another jig. I didn't have one long enough. What I've then physically done is run the router down just so it's lightly scratching the timber, just to make sure that I am inside any voids and I don't cut any corners. I've got a router bit, nice long one, goes all the way through, so I don't have to stuff around flipping it over, cutting it out with a jigsaw or whatever. This works good for me. Little heart failure here, as I realise I only took the original measurement from the radius. Never actually double checked I had the right diameter. I just lost the last bit of footage of the final cut. No big deal, but I did just show I put some spacers underneath the slab here so the router could pass by these steel posts I've got, which I keep there to make sure this thing stays nice and flat until it's all reinforced, ready to go. Okay, bang some chamfers all around to reduce the profile, and then also using the trim router just to get rid of the excess from underneath the reinforcement. Okay, drilling through the hardest wood in the world with the spade bit, but they are sharp. I did have the measurement wrong initially, got the right depth now, then realised get out the dust extractor and suck away all those chips, make life easy on myself, and then bore through with the drill. Okay, so I've attached the frame with threaded inserts and these bolts. I originally had a washer in the hole. All that's done is given me less play, so these 4 bolts line up. This wood is so hard, the washer's pretty redundant. It's not needed. I've bored that hold out just a little bit more, plenty for the head to sit on, but enough to give that couple of mil play. All these holes are lined up good. But if the client's assembling it, you don't want them potentially cross-threading one of these bad boys. So, gonna make it nice and easy on them. Oh, Jesus! Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, what I was trying to show you is this thing is now rock solid, just with these 4 attachment points. I've got the bracing underneath. That's doing its job to hold it all together. There is that, when I hold the table from one end, I can see just that little bit of movement from the weight on all these laminations. But on top of this frame, this thing's going nowhere. So I'm very happy with what I've done here. It's nice and strong, nice and reinforced. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, so sticker sponsor shout out is Lee from Homemade Woodworking. If you like this sort of big table sort of stuff, definitely go and check him out on Instagram and now YouTube. That's not his sticker. That's his sticker. Thanks, mate. Going with a bit of CA glue from Starbond Adhesives if you want to get yourself 10% off these products. I have links for those down below. So you can see it is pretty rigid. I'm very happy with it. Okay, just going to whip up a bit of epoxy. I've created some more of these voids because that's what the customer wants, to give it a bit of something on top. Anyway, I'm just using up a bit of this old stuff, and I'll put a bit of blue tint, make it look cool. I've banned myself from using these big fat pencils in the shop now, just in an effort to be more accurate. So they make good stirrers. Also, hot tip, don't leave your epoxy covered stirring pencil on your table. Okay, going with a oil-based poly, just thinned out a little bit. Here we go. C is for cookie. See what I did there? It's a big cookie. Take you back to the old Sesame Street days. Woo! Woo! I was starting to freak out a bit about the epoxy, but as soon as that clear goes over the top, by jingoes. Although I was worried, when the client says the crazier the better, you're pretty safe. Okay, there's a trapezoid frame. Again, really happy with that. That was 2 videos ago I showed how I made that. And I may have mentioned previous to this, I just showed you how I actually made the slabs. So I could concentrate on the top for this one. I had great intentions of actually trying to figure out how long a project like this takes me. But I hit the shed, I get carried away, I forget to look at the time. It is built over several weeks, but that might be a couple hours here, a couple hours there. So I really don't have a clue. It is a hobby. It's all good fun. But there it is, table, done. I don't know what else to say. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I know I say that a lot, but it really does help me that you guys get involved. Thanks very much. Alrighty, the big table is out and I can actually move again. So it's on with the Carl builder chair. Got to finish that off real soon. Alrighty, I have to make a piece of commercial furniture and I have to do it way cheaper than the going rate of about $1,500 to $4,000. And I'm going to use pine pallets. I have 2 pine pallets that I'm going to start with to try and make as much usable stock as possible, so I don't have to go pallet hunting. There are 2 thicknesses of slats on these pallets as well as the chunky stretches. The loose plan at this stage is chunky stuff up the top, slats for what I need to do down below. Now this commercial piece of furniture is a reception desk and it is going into my wife's business. So it can't be at all dodgy, or she'll have to buy one and I don't want that. I've got the thick slats, I've got the thin slats. This is the size stock I want to use. Now 2 thins is greater than 1 thick. 3 thins is about the size of 2 thick. But then the kerf of the saw blade, that would be too small again. 4 thins, there's probably too much waste. So I think the safest bet, laminate all the thin slats together and then just resaw them into the thick slat. Whew, that wasn't even confusing. Can't slide left. I don't know what it is. I can't squiggle right to left, ideally. I don't think it really matters, to be honest. In hindsight, I should have just gone and got another pine pallet. I only made 6 more boards. I glued them all together, chopped them up. It was actually pretty stupid. I was trying to use what I had here right now. Forget that. I'm just probably gonna go get more pallets anyway, so moving on. This reception desk is a curved reception. So I'm going to use the CNC to help make all the tricky parts. One thing I don't have though is any skills using SketchUp or Fusion 360 All I know is how to join a few shapes together to make my parts. I need to make a 1/4 of one circle desk and then half that 1/4. So those pieces can be cut out on the available real estate on the CNC bed. Clear as mud? Stick with me. I'm also going to use non-structural form ply for the structure, just so the non-structural form ply can feel good about itself on the inside. And again, while the CNC is cutting away, I'll be doing more exciting things like busting down 2 more pallets, denailing, metal detecting, straightening and planing, ripping and resawing, for example. I'm using the first batch of pallets and a few of the CNC'd offcuts to figure out how much stock I'm actually going to need. I'm hoping the 2 additional pallets will be enough. So, my dust extractor has just shit itself. I've only got the next 3 days to do as much work as possible, and it's probably the dustiest, messiest 3 days that I've done in a long time. I'm going to accept that, make a massive mess, figure that out, plumb that up to the new table saw, and hopefully the new table saw will finish this project. A lot of hopefullys. A lot. I don't actually know what the feature front of this thing is called, but I know I need a lot of these pine pallets ripped into these square, let's call them dowel-like pieces. CNC is getting a flogging, and I still have no regrets selling the miter saw. Alright, I would like to take a moment to talk about the sponsor of this video, which is BetterHelp. For the last 6 years, I have been coming out here to the shed, and what I realised pretty quickly was how good this space is for me. I like to say it's money in the brain bank. This is not my full-time job. I actually work in emergency services. So I'm well aware of the importance of talking to people when things get a little bit rough. Therapy is something that I have never done. The older I get, the more I realise it's probably something that I should actually do. And that is where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. Starting therapy can be hard. The right therapist might not be in your area, and some people find the face-to-face interaction of therapy hard or uncomfortable. With BetterHelp, you can have your therapy session by a phone call, video chat, or even messaging if you'd prefer that. Whatever is the most comfortable therapy for you. BetterHelp can match you to one of their 30,000 therapists in their network. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Dainer. To get started, all you need to do is fill out a questionnaire and then you'll be matched to a therapist. In most cases, within 48 hours or less. You'll be able to schedule a therapy session that is convenient for you. And if a therapist you are matched with at first isn't quite right, then you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance. Clicking that link helps support the channel, and it also gets you 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. So you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. Okay, the top of this desk will be a pine pallet wood slab top, and I've used all the chunky pallet stretchers. I've made sure all the nail holes face up or down. This makes sure all the movement is across the boards and not across the slab. I want them breathing up and down, not left and right, if that makes sense. No dust extraction is a bit of a nightmare, but I have to keep going. As well as wanting to save the dollars on buying a desk, I need to have the desk ready well before it is needed, because if we do have to order one, that has to happen very soon, and I don't want that. Let me share a pallet punter tip with you. If you do your slab glue up in one go, knowing that you need smaller widths to go through the planer, what you can do is clamp up the entire slab in one go, and then you'll have a perfectly jointed edge ready to go for the 2 pieces. Yin and yang, if you will. It just saves one more step jointing, especially when time is not on your side and you want to emphasize that again to dramatize the video. CNC parts are mostly done now, and I have to get on with putting a round over on 2 edges of all the square dowels. That will now be half rounded dowels. The router table is normally one of my best machines for extraction, but with no extraction it is a massive mess, and it is also a very slow process to get all of these lengths done. Gotta press on. slightly miscalculated the dimensions of the slab top, so I had to glue on an extra few pieces and then hand plane those flat. Yes, I own a hand planer. Before I could put it onto the CNC bed for magical shaping. I tell you, I have been pretty blown away with the CNC. Even with my limited design skills, I was able to make a heap of parts with amazing precision. I can only imagine all the fluffing around I would have had to have done if I had to cut these arcs with a router and a circle cutting jig. It is time to start assembling all these CNC form ply parts, and you'll start to see what the reception desk is actually going to resemble. I did have to do a little handsaw work, which can be expected when you completely make up a project as you go without any plans. I'm working my way up from the base, starting with the kickboard, and although it does look a little overcomplicated, it actually is not. Just a few extra steps to get it to look right. With the kickboard sorted, it was really just a simple process of making a skeleton frame to join all the components together. The strength is going to come later in the project. It was pretty cool to have the CNC cut out all the joinery sections as well. However, because of the router bit, all the corners have a round profile at any 90-degree turn. So to save time chiseling all of those out nice and flush and square, I decided to chamferize all the uprights so the rounded corner was not a player and everything sat nice and flush on both sides. All I have to do is check square a few times to continue to work my way up the reception desk. And then handsaw off any parts I didn't need and lop off all the overhanging uprights. With most of the brain work done, I can bust out the pipe bond and do what I do best. Join pieces of wood to other pieces of wood. Okay, this sheet of 3mm ply was just right to bend around the curve of the reception desk, glue, screws and a trim router, and happy days, I'm cruising along to meet this deadline. Also did a double layer of 3mm ply on the kickboard, just in case, you know, it gets kicked. Time for the part that I've probably lost the most sleep over thinking about the process. This entire front face is going to be covered in the pine pallet half square, half round dowels. Initially, I'll just do a few pieces at a time until I establish a good routine and ensure that it all gets clamped down sufficiently. I ended up doing about 10 pieces at a time, and I would come back as the glue had set on each round until I made my way right over the pallet wood Sydney Harbour Bridge. Absolute 100% arse. I celebrated just a little bit early, but there's probably 2mm there. happy with that. I'm sure there was probably another way to chop all of these strips off. However, I did not come up with one, and it did not actually take that long, despite the dramatisation in this video. Feeling pretty chuffed with myself and my progress as I cut some biscuit slots to join the slab top together and bring this final assembly together. And that is when I learned a few things about circles that I had not really considered. In my brain, I could simply make circle components bigger and I would have a nice even overhang lip. Well, I was very wrong. If this table was a full circle, that would be fine. However, it is an arc of a circle, so different size circles make different size arcs. So the biscuits were not required and I had to make up some wedges to complete the slab top properly, which in the end it actually worked out just fine. So just skinning up both sides now. I've used a combination of clamps, screws, but where I can't get clamps, I've just screwed these offcuts in to pull that sheet in against the form ply behind there. Then all that will come off, bogged up, happy days. The final component is a handbag / man bag shelf. Somewhere where you can rest your stuff while you dig out your credit card, for example. The shelf is recessed into the front of the desk, and I had a couple of chunks of pine which I salvaged from my old table saw station, which I've now pulled apart. I used the offcut curve from the slab top as my guide for my router. I did get a little carried away on the second cut of this shelf. However, I caught my mistake after only one pass, luckily, and then I had to rig up the actual countertop so I could get the opposing arc for the other side of the shelf. So without much fuss, I had that shelf. I then had to rig up an edge for the router and the flush trim bit to run up against to cut out the recess for the shelf. Although it looks a little off-road, it wasn't. Slow and steady was the secret, and it actually worked out perfectly. Happy days. Getting very close to finishing, so putting a little chamfer on the top of the countertop to feel good on the inside. And also getting the CNC to cut the final parts, which is a desktop. So this reception desk is a reception and a desk. And I'm pretty stoked with how this has all come together in a pretty short amount of time. Here is a quick look at the desk prior to any finish going on. You'll notice there is some pretty ordinary looking pine with this heaps of what looks like to be oil stains, which it's not. In fact, what it is called, which I had to ask Dale, so let me look up what he said because I've forgotten. It is called blue stain. Now we all know, which normally looks quite horrendous in my opinion. However, there is a reason I've chose all of this shonky pine. It is because this desk is going to be completely painted. No point spending big monies on quality hardwood or searching for nice pallets when you are not going to see them. And the pine has kept the overall weight down on on this desk. So just a couple of coats of white paint for now. The final colour choice is still being decided on. Stay tuned, I'll keep you updated on that one. And one more thing about the paint, because I slapped that on nice and thick, it has filled any voids between the slats and give it a nice uniform, professional finish, which I'm happy to say has been given the big nod of approval. I'd have saved us a lot of money. Thank you very much for watching. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and catch you later. G'day, my name is Mark and I have this massive Merbau pallet and I want to turn it into something cool, make some cash and somehow try to beat Morley Kurt and Jesper Makes at this pallet game. Morley took a pallet and added some steel legs and he flogged that off on Instagram. Jesper took his pallet, added a heap of epoxy, then he gave his creation away to his mother-in-law. And then someone bought it on the internet. Orkies. Now, I have this massive Merbau pallet, except I already know what I'm going to get paid. So I don't know what the competition is or how to beat these blokes. I think I just wanted to sneak in a cheeky rando shout out. Alrighty, back to how my story actually begins. And it did not start with this massive pallet. It began with these skateboards. Say yes to the right things and no to the wrong things. This, my friends, I hope was a right thing. Long story short, I was contacted by a potential customer if I could build a dining table out of recycled skateboards. I said, sorry, I simply don't have enough skateboards for that size project and I did not want to commit my precious supply. The customer came back to me and said, if I can get the skateboards, would you be interested? Me? Yeah, sure. If you can source them, I will make the table. I was quietly confident I wouldn't be making the table. Hi Mark, I've got the skateboards. Where would you like me to send them? Here we go. You know what looks pretty rad with broken skateboards? Dark timber. Dark pallet wood timber. This is my last Palletosaurus Rex that my mate Big Dave Kelly found for me, and I'm putting it to use. Myself and the customer had the usual back and forth to come up with the basic design and dimensions, and I also got the green light to just be creative. I trust you. Happy days. Oh, and also nothing too chunky. Well back, I work with pallets. They have to be chunky. It needs chunky, rustic charm, don't they? I'm going to have to get my woodwork on to try some new things and meet the client brief. How can I de-chunkify this build? Taperization. That's how. I have never cut a tapered leg on a table ever. And it is not actually that hard to do, so I discovered. I took one of my straightening jigs, screwed on some tapering angles and stops, then simply cut two sides of each leg, do the same thing 4 times, and hey presto, taperization complete. Now, if you recall from my last video, I said I'm going full business human. I'm going to get more smarter and get much better at running my side hustle like a business, building a backup plan. I'm tracking the time spent on the build, calculating the cost, and then I can come up with an hourly rate. Straight up, I had to buy a sheet of plywood. There goes $100. No matter, plenty left for my wallet. The table will have 2 semicircle ends, and I know from my design in my brain that I'll need to cut many a semicircle, so I had to whip up a new circle cutting jig, an adjustable one. Now, just like pallets, Recycled skateboards need a lot of preparation to turn them into usable timber. In my brain, I know I need some stock for the edge of the table and a heap of stock for whatever the pattern is going to be, which I have not yet settled on. So while all this de-gripping, sanding, laminating, jointing, planing, sawing, re-sawing and re-planing is going on, I've been tuning into a couple of my favourite recycled skateboard YouTube craftsmen, which is none other than Andrew Zito and Ben from Woodworks Design. I spotted this particular design by Ben and I loved how the skateboard looked like they had been woven. And then I was staring at this chair and I realised it is woven. Or is it just a herringbone? Nope, it is woven. I am going to weave these skateboards. I now truly understand the wool. You got to celebrate as you go. Woo! A while back I sold my bandsaw and I have no regrets. However, I do have to work within the limits of my machines. Height of the table saw blade is the main limitation. You also have a lot more waste with table saw blades as opposed to a bandsaw blade, which when the resource is finite, that can be an issue. No regrets. This is my Pene press. I used to have a big steel hydraulic press, but it took up valuable space and I did not use it very often. These sash clamps with their 7,000 pounds of clamping pressure do an unreal job and I achieve as good results. In fact, they are so tough, something inside of you will probably go pop before they do. Bottle of Tight Bond, there goes another 70 bucks. She'll be right. In Ben's latest video, he makes a circular table and cuts the edge capping with the CNC. I don't have a CNC, so I've come up with another way, a way I lost many hours of sleep over. Okay, let me bring in for a live update. So I've made this segmented ring. This is gonna prove the concept before I use the skateboards and make a meal of it. So I need to cut the corresponding curve of the circle, which using my center hole and then just dragging the route a bit to the inner edge cut, then in theory, this arc should fit perfectly onto that semicircle. Can you hear my brain thinking? Neither can I. Let's give it a bash. Then, when I watch Ben's video, right at the end, he explains how he could have just made a segmented circle and cut it with a router. So I reached out to him to let him know that I am not knocking off his good ideas. I have the bags under my eyes to prove it. I am, however, plagiarizing a few woos in this video. For no other reason than it always makes me smile when I see him punch out a few celebration woos or two. Okay, so I have now got two semicircles, making shit up as you go, although I have lost a lot of sleep over this. Not gonna lie, a little bit nervous. I left myself a note last night to cut the outside first. If I cut the inside, there's nothing for this thing to actually sit on top of. I'm all chopped up in the middle. A couple of little glue blocks that'll let the clamp stay out of the way so my jig has all the space it needs. Gonna stop rambling, just gonna have a crack. I'm just gonna double check. Safe to say I was very happy that these semicircles are cut perfectly. There was no backup stock. In fact, the backup plan would have had to have been solid timber, but the customer "I trust you" clause was at the forefront of my mind. Enough rambling. I am very happy with this. I have the 80 hardware sections of skateboards, which again needs a fair bit of persuasion to get them laminated together, which has worked a treat and will give me more rainbow stock that I can use for the edge capping later. Again, I have to work within the limits of the table saw to get these squared up. The jointer and the thickness of planer would blow them up. Oh, check out those offcuts. I think I can use those as well a bit later on. License to go nuts. I mean, be creative. It is time to get my stock squared up and dimensioned to the exact size in which length equals 2 times the width. Maths. A rectangle. I need lots of rectangles that fit together and are the perfect size, no matter which way you put them. You'll see soon. Trust me. This is my thin strip jig, a nice, safe way to cut very thin pieces and have them all the exact same width. It is slow going, but well worth the effort. Let me start to weave these broken skateboards. Now I understand that this may look like a herringbone, but stick with me. I have got 5 different color arrangements of skateboard, and as long as I stick to the pattern, you'll start to see the weave. I did a fair bit of double checking to make sure the pattern worked and you could get a continuous run of under and over from the different color variants. Simple, but pretty bloody effective. The beauty of lamination or veneering on top of plywood is, firstly, it is very stable, no stressing about timber movement. Secondly, you can make a little bit of stock go a very long way. Veneering is a beautiful thing. And if you can't get hold of broken skateboards, you can use pallets. And if you're going to ask me where to get broken skateboards, there is a video down below by Ben. Let's take a little break from the skateboards and get going on the frame. I've got my legs sorted from the Merbau pallet. Now I'm cleaning up this reclaimed decking for the underside framework. I'm laminating 2 boards together for strength and chunkiness. No one will know. And I also want to add a little accent with these offcuts, plus a roundover, which looks pretty groovy and less chunky. It is time to start to bring all this action together with my favourite type of woodworking, tight bond and clamps. Great things can happen when you glue wood together. Bust out the belt sander and a roundover on the edges. Happy days. The legs will need to be detachable so the table can be transported. So I need to get a little more woodworky, and I've rigged up this little jig to take off a little material across the 45 of the leg. I'll use the same jig later on to drill the holes, which will then let me thread in the bolts as a means of attachment and detachment. These little 45-degree corner brackets provide the opposing force for the leg to be pulled in nice and square. With all the pieces now made, I can start to assemble. I went and purchased a larger roundover bit. The little one was not quite right. We won't take that out. Now, I did promise I'll share my money-making extravaganza and lessons learnt in my latest video. The obvious lesson for me is, do you know that part of your body that looks like a rusty bullet hole? Don't pluck a figure out of there. When quoting, take a bit of time and try and work it out. Anyway, as you know, I'll be paid $1,000 for this piece. I have spent about $200 on plywood, tight bond, finish and hardware, and I have spent about 20 hours making this project. So on the net, that's about $40 an hour, and I still have to pay the taxman. The question is, did I say yes to the right thing? And did I get smarter at being a business human? Yes. Yes, I did. I am very happy with the side hustle profit level. I would not want to run a full-time business with that level of profit. What this project did do for me is establish what 20 hours of pretty full-on work looked like, and that'll be a great reference point for me in the future when I start to get a little more serious about quoting. I have also still got heaps of potential revenue sources from the leftover skateboard offcuts, noses and tails, and these little tiles. They will make a couple of magic mallet handles. Said yes to the right things. I also have 2 large offcuts of ply and almost half a bottle of glue, which means I am ready to go to make something similar if I want. With that considered, it actually bumps my profit back up to about 900 kangaroos. Finally, did I beat Morley Kurt and Jesper Makes? I don't know. Maybe. I guess if you watch this video over and over, or share it with as many friends as possible, then maybe I will. Or maybe I'll come a little bit closer. Okay? Catch you later. G'day, my name's Mark, kicking off another project. This one's all about the pallet again. It's the 3rd stool to go with the other 2 stools, the conical shaped Dalek looking things that you can see up here. This one, just want to get back to basics with the pallet wood, bust down the pallets, clean them up, make them usable, and then make something cool. This is where this thing is worth its weight in gold, that you just bend over the nail and butts him out. It's a beautiful thing. All my pallet studs will go through the table saw to get their first straight edge. I've got 2 straightening jigs. This one with the toggles is great, especially when all your boards are the same thickness. It's very quick on and off. The other one is for all my other rando straightening activities. With this one, if I have got all sorts of different thicknesses of pallets, I'll just have a couple of shims on hand, so I can set the toggles to the highest setting, just throw a few shims in for the thinner boards, and away you go. While I'm learning what looks cool, what works, is pick a piece of furniture that I have or have seen and just use some of those angles, because I like this profile. So I'm going to lay that down, make a template which I can then make a similar shape out of my pallet wood. One of the great things I learned when I built my workbench using Cuffy's plans for the Aussie Ocker workbench is templates are really going to be your friend. You want to make 2 things exactly the same or multiples. Having a template which you can line up, reference, everything's going to look super spot on. So I've got to do that mostly because then I need to be able to get the angles and the exact heights I need for my stools. So I don't want to pluck it. This will let me do it all I'm going to have 2 layers of pallet wood. I'm going to work my way around, make up 2 layers. So basically it's all interlocked with half laps. I've just elevated this off the deck so I can get clamps on. It's going to be a little bit fiddly, but I just got to trust now all the angles line up. I know they're all good, and just basically work my way around, get as much glue as possible in as much places as possible, and then clamp the shit out of it. I'm not going to do that shit. If you want to see cool clamp removal stuff, head over to the Grant Alexander. Check out his videos and sub up. He is a good man. It's hot. Okay, that's number 2 done. I've just checked each corner against the first one I've glued up. They are all perfect except for one. It's within a fly's wiener, so no one's going to know ever, except for you. Next up, it'll be a case of putting in half laps everywhere to hold the 2 pieces together. I'll give that some thought for a while because of the angles of the dangles. Check it out. I'm actually using my awesome woodwork bench that I made instead of over there on that shit thing. Time to glue this up. I've just got the footrest rail sitting in loosely just to make it stand. I'm now going to work my way around and get all the cross pieces glued on. And then we'll go to town with the check squares to make sure it's all nice and flat, nice and square, looking Mickey Mouse. So I just had one more step, had to get the angles for all the braces so they weren't sticking up on top. Just took a measurement, took it over the table saw and did all 4. So now I'm ready to glue. Alrighty, it's going to be a lot of check squaring. All the cross pieces are now attached. Now you'll notice these front pieces are only a single piece of pallet thick. I'm now going to add a second piece. Now for strength, I've got at the moment it's pretty good. I've got 2 screws with a half lap. There's some pretty good surface area. I am going to take the screws out and put dowel in because I think it'll look better. Then going to do is slot a second piece in on that inside edge. Again, we're now creating a more complex joint, but we're only doing it with glue. Again, it's merely just half laps basically. So these all have the same angle cut in. Then they just slot in, glue them into position. It'll match the aesthetic of the other side, and I just wanted to use the word aesthetic. That was the only reason. It's all looking pretty cool now. All the angles are done, which does take a little bit longer, and when you've got two different angles front and back, it's a little bit of back and forth changing around, but I think it's a good thing just to learn those little tricks, bevels, angles, all that sort of good bizzo. Saying that, you could make this stool completely square, all sides, and just go through the same routine just to get a feel for playing with pallets and gluing them together. Simple corner joinery, but again, it's going to be nice and strong because you've got heaps of gluing surface area. So that's what I like. Alright, I've just cut that angle on the table saw very carefully, slowly. I've just got to take away this edge just to try and neaten up this footstool with the angles that I've got going. I've also got to clear out that so it fits snug against there. So these are still the little extra things I want to do just to improve the skills basically, and figure things out as I go. This has to get a capping piece on it, which is a shame because the original idea was to seal the end grain. On my conical stools, I had a complete disaster and I had to cut my losses, and I ended up capping it. You still get to see the pallet lamination, which is a bit of a throwback to the way I like to do things, so as long as you get to see some of it, happy days. I've just removed all those screws. I've replaced those with dowel. Now I'm going to go around with the filler. This is the beauty of working with pallet wood. You make mistakes, there's little gaps here and there, you can just bog it up. But what this stool is nice and strong. It's square where it needs to be, and it's trapezoidal where it needs to be trapezoidal. A little bit of bog, sandpaper, finish, you got yourself a pretty nice stool. This is what I like using pallets. The wood is free and it all seems to come together once you smooth it off. Hit it with some sandpaper, hit it with some finish. Alrighty, sticker sponsor shout out is Wood by Whitey. You go and check him out on Instagram. He's got a bit of a channel on YouTube as well. There's your sticker, mate. Thanks very much. Okay, just about done. To soften it up some more, what I'm going to do is put some chamfers on this inside edge just to change the chunkiness or change the profile a little bit. Chamfers will just make you feel good on the inside. So, that's why I do it. We are nearly done. Pallet wood. It's a beautiful thing. I have my two pieces. This video is obviously all about making this. Now, these curved seat tops, arse holsters with the backrest, and these tiny little side arms. You can check out how I made those in the cone shape stool video. It goes into all the bending and all that sort of stuff. But it's basically pallet wood veneers on top of some 3mm ply, which bends beautifully in the one direction. And for this seat back, which is bent in 2 axis, I've actually, the guts of this one is skateboard veneers, so a lot thinner, a lot more pliable. Then it's all bolted together with threaded inserts and these stainless steel bolts, which I think look pretty cool. That then goes on top and I bolt the bottom on and it's nice and strong. So bolts, threaded inserts, it's really just another cool way of joining timber together. The reason I got into doing this way is I basically pulled apart a chair, took the pieces, used those templates to make myself a wooden chair. I'll put a playlist for all the bendy chairs that I've done and a couple of longboards if you want more information on bending wood. The bendy part, it's not that hard, and then as long as you can straighten off the edges, get some bolts, threaded inserts, and you put it all together, and you've got a really fun project which will teach you heaps of cool new things rather than just all square, all straight all the time. I'm just trying to check square with the front of the seat pan. Stool number 3. Okay, I've got the old hand tripod going on here. Let me show you the finished piece. It's different, I'll give you that. But it's nice and strong, and it was heaps of fun to make. That's it. Thanks very much for watching. This is my last project for the year. I'll just have a bit of a wind down now for Christmas. I'll just make a few rando things in the shed. I hope you enjoy this one, and hope you watch the other one as well. It is the end of another pretty challenging year for a lot of people. So what you can do is just get out and support people, get behind them and help them get moving and kick off 2022 with all good things. Alrighty? Okay, catch you later.
G'day, my name is Mark. I'm Jesper. That's Mark, and this is a little story about Mark. You may know him as the pallet punter, or that Aussie guy who uses pallets. Lots and lots and lots of pallets to build his projects. Mark, or Dainty as he prefers to be called, started a woodworking hobby many years ago, and he decided he would use pallet wood as pallets are free and easy to learn with. Dainty then decided to share his work on the internet in all the usual social places, so his friends and family could see what he was up to. It also helped him to sell a few items of furniture and make a little money. And this helped him to buy tools and make more furniture. Dainty also likes to have a laugh, as we all know by now. One day he received a message, a meme. This meme, and it goes a little something like this.
What a classic! I know exactly which buffet to send this to.
It took me all day, but I finally made this pallet out of an old coffee table.
Uncle Nappers.
And Mark lolled. That's right, he laughed out loud.
I'm lolling out loud.
Then he received the meme a few more times. Then, the more people Dainty met on the woodworking internet, the more he would get sent the very same meme.
Laughy face, laughy face, laughy face.
Oh, seriously, that's got Dainer written all over it.
Well,
I gotta send that to Dainsy.
Dainsy, you'll love this one.
lol,
That's gold. Gotta send that to Dainty.
lol.
Gotta share that with Dainsy.
Waha.
Yeah, that's got Dainer written all over it.
Lol.
Bloody hell. Have a look at this one, Daisy.
BW, HA.
Mark's gonna like this.
Dainer's gonna love it.
Lol.
I gotta send that to Dainer.
BW, HA.
Oh, Dainsy, you're gonna love this one.
Lol.
Oh, yeah, send us the word.
Lol. Lol.
Mark's gonna giggle like a schoolgirl.
Laughy face.
Oh man, check that out. Mark is gonna love this.
Lol.
Mark will love that.
Lol. Waha.
Dana's gonna love that. Check this out.
Waha.
Definitely sending this to Dainer.
BW, HA.
I better send that over to Mark. I bet he hasn't seen that one.
Mark had well and truly seen this meme, but he would always reply with a lol or a BWHA or the crying laughing emoji as appropriate. Did people actually find this funny, or were they trying to send Mark a message? Mark did not know and carried on replying.
Mark needs to do this. Oh, you okay, buddy?
BWHA.
Did you just BWAHA me right now?
I did just BW, HA you, mate. Sorry, I've seen the meme. A lot.
Mark, you have to do this. The internet needs you to do this. I needs you to do this.
So it was decided Mark would make the meme. He got started by searching the internet for a coffee table. One that would have sufficient timber to make a full-size shipping pallet. Mark could not believe his luck when he found this solid coffee table for just 25 kangaroo skins. That is the currency of Australia. And because he is a massive tight ass, this coffee table was just perfect. Was it mahogany? Was it walnut? Was it some exotic timber he could not pronounce without getting corrected by Victorians? Mark was excited. This was going to be the most beautiful pallet ever made. Then Mark makes his first cut and this excitement fades as he realizes the coffee table is made out of pine. And it was merely a dark stain and varnish. This did not deter Mark. The internet needs this. Phil needs this. I need this. Now. All this time, the memes never stopped rolling in. Mark would reply and carry on with his important task of creating a beautiful shipping pallet made from a coffee table. That took him all day. Just like the meme said, what Mark would really like you to know, this meme has well and truly been done on all the places of the internet. We must now ask ourselves, why did Mark really do this? Firstly, he needed a special pallet that he mentioned in his last video and pretended to make a big deal out of. The mysterious 20th pallet, as you may recall. Secondly, Mark needs a pallet, albeit it is just made of pine, so he can host a pallet maker challenge. A pallet challenge? So basically this video is an invitation to you, my maker friends. And to me, of course. Thanks, Mark. Mark would like you to make something out of a pallet. Or two, or three. And some other ingredients, if you wish. And just to have some fun and be creative. The challenge will run in the first quarter of 2023. And there will be some special prizes, special pallet mallets made by Mark. How many? Well, he does not know yet, because he's literally making this up as he's writing the script for me to read. Mark would also like to invite the prize winners to make a cameo performance in a video with him along with their pallet creations.
Checks where?
And if this sounds like a little bit of fun to start the year, Mark would very much like it if you shared this video with your friends. Because we must all realize that no one is searching YouTube for a video on how to build a pallet out of an old coffee table. Mark had left the pallet out in the weather and then applied his most favorite pallet finishing concoction of water-based opinions and unnecessary palletwood hate. Mark also did briefly wonder if there would be a niche market for custom-made pallets made from recycled furniture.
There we go. Woo. Let's find out.
I am Jesper from Jesper Mates. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I will see you all very soon. Thank you.
And also, if it's your first time here, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe and help Mark out. That'd be great. Yeah, Mark needs the help.